How y'all doing? I know it's been a minute, but I am alive. I am well. It does warm my heart every single time I see one of you guys say, "Where's the video?" or you wish that I posted more. I've just been kind of struggling with motivation levels lately. I really am trying to make sure that I don't burn out my love for reading. Obviously, I started this because I love reading. And I know that whenever you start a book-related social media account, things can kind of turn into a numbers game. And I really just don't want reading to start feeling like a chore or an assignment for me. You know, I decided to take a break from school. I don't really want assignments right now. We do also have a live audience here with us today. Would you like to say hi? She's trying to nap. The title of this video is clickbait. I knew before I even started filming this video that I was gonna title it My Recent 5-Star Reads. And you may be thinking, how is that clickbait? Are you gonna sit here and tell us about a ton of books you hated? No, I am not. It is clickbait because I no longer subscribe to the 5-star system. I have broken free from the shackles of the 5-star rating scale, and my life is better for it. This was something that I decided to do at the beginning of the year. It was kind of one of my New Year goals, even though it's not really a goal. It's just something I said I was gonna do. But it has made my reading experience exponentially better. I personally would think way too hard about the way that I rated a book, and since my reviews and opinions are public, one, I would sometimes get kind of anxious if I wanted to come on here and rate a book low, or I would be trying to fit my thoughts and opinions into a rating instead of the other way around, instead of just having a rating fit my thoughts and my opinions. I really feel like it's all just so arbitrary, and of course it's so subjective. Then we start to get into a 4.25 versus a 4.5 versus a 4.75. What does that mean? I'd rather just talk about a book, talk about what I liked, what I didn't, how it made me feel, and then not have to worry about capping it with a star rating. And I know, in reality, is any of this actually that serious? No, it's not. If you love the 5-star rating scale and you love to pop a little star into Goodreads after you finished a book, I love that for you. I just don't. Now, all of that was a very long-winded, unnecessary explanation for the title of this video. I'm basically just gonna sit here and talk about some of the books that I really loved recently. These are all books that I probably would have rated 5 stars if I still did that. I personally have had such a good reading streak lately. It was just hit after hit. These are all books that I enjoyed so much that I simply don't want to hear any criticism on. I'm sure there are valid criticisms to be made, but not to my ears. I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't even think I can pick a favorite. Ooh, we'll start here. This is Hell Has Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. Now, this was a part of my most recent book haul that I posted, and in that haul, I predicted that I was gonna love this book. And guess what? I loved this book. This is about our main character named Benji. He was raised by an extremely religious cult that has successfully brought on the Armageddon and nearly wiped out the world's population. Also, they've infected Benji with this biohazard weapon that is slowly but surely turning him into a monster. And their goal is to use Benji in his final monster form to destroy the rest of the world. I felt like I was reliving the height of the 2010s YA dystopian era while I was reading this. This embodied the feeling of so many of those iconic sci-fi dystopian books with its own unique take though. There's amazing representation in this book. Benji, our main character, is a trans teenager. He is rescued by a group of teens from the LGBTQ center. There's neurodivergent representation. So if you are interested in reading books with characters with different representations, different identities, which you should be, I highly recommend Andrew Joseph White as an author. The writing in this was also so good. It still felt so original, even while feeling reminiscent of that YA dystopian era. I just knew from reading the author's note in this book that I was going to love the writing. I still think it is the best author's note that I've ever read, and I did originally read it in my first video, but I'm gonna read bits and parts of it here again in case you haven't seen that. If you set a fire, you're going to inhale some smoke. I'm all for setting fires and burning whatever will catch flame, but I encourage you to be careful when you pour the kerosene. I wrote this book for a few reasons, because I wanted more stories about boys like me, because I was angry, because I still am, but mainly I wanted to show queer kids that they can walk through hell and come out alive. Maybe not in one piece, maybe forever changed, but alive and worthy of love all the same. Sharpen your teeth, take up your fire, and let's do this. Tell me that does not make you want to absolutely devour this. That message has me ready to fight a war. This was just the perfect balance of focus on Benji and his interpersonal struggles with his identity, his upbringing, his relationship with religion, while still having such a strong and interesting plot. If anything, my only criticism, or not even criticism, like, I wanted more. I would have loved if we had gone deeper into the history of the cult, how they started, how the Armageddon happened, because this does take place, the book starts kind of right after the big apocalyptic event and the world is already destroyed. I guess I'm just saying that the background of this story was so interesting, so well laid, so well crafted, that I would have read a 700-page version of this book. I actually have both of his other books coming in the mail right now. One is called The Spirit Bears Its Teeth, which is about mediums, insane asylums, spirits, Victorian London. And then the other was actually just released a few days ago called Compound Fracture, and it takes place in the Appalachian Mountains. And one thing about me, I love a book set in Appalachia. So I always feel that's the proper way to say it, but I feel stupid saying it that way. I don't know. If I enjoy his other books as much as I enjoyed this one, then I definitely think Andrew Joseph White could be one of my new favorite authors. I also just recently read and loved Monstrilio. Now, this book is absolutely raved about on the literary fiction side of Book Talk. I was seeing it mentioned nonstop, which, can we talk about Book Talk for a second? What is going on over there? Like, why is there a side of Book Talk thirsting over a serial killer? Like, imagine your family member or a loved one is literally murdered, and then you see some stupid bitch online making comments about how hot the murderer is, or about how they're imagining him as the main character in the dark romance book that they're currently reading. I would go berserk. Like, the TikToks of this man in court with people commenting things like, "Where's Book Talk?" Calling Book Talk. No. Call your mother. Call your therapist. Call the police. Stop doing that. It also just feels like there's new drama over there every single day. And I'm not talking about people having valid criticisms of books or people having negative opinions about books. That's not drama. That's a part of being in the book community and sharing your opinions with others. I'm talking like the full-on scandals. Like, they're scamming people over there? What happened to reading? Sorry, tangent over. I felt the need to share my 2 cents that nobody asked for. Also, that was not meant to be me condemning all of Book Talk. There are wonderful sides of Book Talk with so many accounts that I love. I still get so many good recommendations from Book Talk. It just feels like there is one side of Book Talk that is louder than the rest. Back to Monstrilio. This is literary fiction, probably more so literary horror. This is about a mother who cuts out a piece of her recently deceased child's lung and then nurtures this piece of lung until it grows into an actual being. A monster. We follow this family as they're not only grieving the loss of their son, but they are also now trying to deal with the absurdity in the presence of this new being in their lives. As Monstrilio grows up, he does become more human-like. He does take on more human characteristics, but he still fights the more primal animal instincts of the creature that he once was. This book is nearly genius in my eyes, and the more I think about it, the more I feel that way. The concept of Monstrilio's character as a metaphor for grief is just so well done. He is meant to be like a physical representation of this family's grief, and there are times throughout the book where Monstrilio is more human-like or well-behaved, and so of course at those points of the book he's very easy to live with, manageable. But then there are also times where he does give in to those primal animalistic instincts and ends up creating these huge issues for this family, which then at that point he becomes unmanageable and like all-consuming. It's exactly how grief comes in waves, and anyone who's experienced can tell you that that's what it does. Some days it can feel easy to live with, you can get through the day, and then there are other days where it just completely takes over and it consumes you. Monstrilio's character arc was also one of my favorite things about this book. It was exactly what it needed to be. If it had gone in any other direction than the one that it did, it would not have felt right. There's just so much to this. If you're the type of person who likes to analyze as you read, you should definitely read this, because not only is it overall a metaphor for grief, but there are other themes like sexuality, individuality, humanity, lots of those types of themes. Now, when I saw that this next book even existed, I immediately bought it, and that is the complete and annotated screenplay of Jordan Peele's Get Out movie. Now, I think I made it very clear by now that I am quite the horror fan. Horror movies are some of my favorite movies to watch. However, I don't like going to scary things. Like, I know October's coming up, haunted houses, haunted hayrides. Not my jam. I like to be a casual observer. I don't want to be in the situation. Everyone's posting TikToks right now about Universal's Halloween Horror Nights, and if I wasn't a baby, I would be there. It looks so cool. I do see that some children, they get to walk around with a little necklace that like signals to the monsters not to scare them. So maybe I just need to do that. Another tangent. But like I said, this is the complete script of Get Out with Jordan Peele's own notes and annotations. I think Jordan Peele makes movies for book lovers because his books are full of things to pay attention to. His books are full of things to analyze and pick apart. Like, every one of his choices is so intentional and everything has meaning. So being able to read through the movie with his own notes provided even more clarity to things that I hadn't even picked up on when I watched the movie. There are deleted scenes, an alternate ending. There's also a really, really good foreword by Tananarive Due, who is also a Black horror author. After I read her foreword, I immediately went to Goodreads and added some of her books to my TBR. It is really, really great commentary. Can you stop licking, please? Did you see the look that she gave me? Back to what I was saying. It is really, really great commentary on the horror genre as a whole and where Black horror fits in or historically hasn't fit in to the horror genre. I found it really eye-opening, very insightful, and as a horror media consumer, I am really glad to have read it. I think there's also another one of these coming out for us, which I will 100% be reading that. She likes to sit on my shoulder like a parrot sometimes. Another book that I really enjoyed recently was When We Lost Our Heads by Heather O'Neill. This is literary fiction very loosely inspired by the story of Marie Antoinette. It follows the lifelong relationship between two women from the time that they met when they were young girls. They have a very interesting and intense friendship as little girls that even results in something very dangerous happening, so they're forced to be separated. Years pass, and as they're growing up, they still kind of stay in each other's orbit. First of all, the dynamic that Heather O'Neill built between these two girls was just... because it's like, are they best friends? Are they enemies? Are they lovers? It's a little bit of everything, and she executes that notion that love and hate are two sides of the same coin. She does that very well. She also highlights the fact that little girls can be downright evil sometimes. This book is also a great representative of the unhinged women subgenre, which is a subgenre I hold very near and dear to my heart. I don't even know how to begin to describe the vibes of this book. It's very campy, it's very over-exaggerated. Oversaturated is the word I would use. It almost reminds me of Alice in Wonderland a little bit. I think it's because of just how kind of like slightly goofy the things are in this book. This book is also so Chappell Roan coded, it's not even funny. Like, the two main characters are a Chappell Roan song. And that's not even all of it. There's also just such a dark undertone that permeates through all of this. Like, there are much more serious themes like class, desire, sexuality, the struggles of feminism. If you like Mona Awad, then I think you'll enjoy this, especially because she calls this a dazzling, delicious dream. Right there on the cover of the book. Now, I think Eliza Clark has cemented herself as an auto-buy author for me with this one. I don't know if I like the term auto-buy. I know I've used it before, but I think it's more like auto anticipation. Like, I'm always gonna get excited when this author announces new releases. Anyway, Penance by Eliza Clark. This is about the gruesome murder of a 16-year-old girl in a small a small seaside town on the Yorkshire coastline. I just said that so American. I'm not going to say it again. But the murder of a girl from a small English town, and it is told from the perspective of a journalist who is writing a complete account of the murder and all of the events surrounding the murder. Eliza Clark somehow managed to make a 320-page case study interesting to read, because that's essentially what this is. She created and painted an in-depth and complete picture of this murder. And not only the murder, but also the history and the politics of the town, which again sounds boring, but she somehow managed to even make that interesting to read. This is also really gonna get you thinking about the concept of being a fan of true crime, about the fanaticism that can happen on social media, about true crime podcasts, about Tumblr culture. Tumblr culture is very present in this book because it does take place in 2016. But if you are a true crime fan, you might not like this because you will feel called out by it. And I am saying that as a person who does consume true crime content. I still watch a lot of documentaries, a lot of YouTube essays about true crime, but I definitely used to consume true crime in a very immature and ignorant way. And it is the exact way that Eliza Clark is highlighting in this book. And if you read this, you will pick up on it immediately. I listened to a pair of white women with white wine who called it the best contemporary story they'd covered in years. They paused in the right places and cooed, "Poor girl, poor thing, poor baby." And he's talking about women with true crime podcasts, which I used to listen to those. I am guilty of that. I have 2 more books that I want to talk about. The first one is Annie Bot by Sierra Greer. This is about a very human-like robot who was created solely to serve her human male owner. She is used mainly as a sexual companion. She also cooks for him. She cleans for him. Her sole purpose is to satisfy this man. She is described as being more advanced than other robots of her same kind. She is set to a certain mode where she is meant to be more human-like. She's meant to have her own thoughts, to make some of her own decisions, but not too many, because this obviously starts to raise some concerns for her owner. This is told from Annie's point of view, so we are watching her battle with her programming to please Doug, but also her urge and drive to keep developing herself, to keep learning new things, because the more she learns, the more she essentially becomes her own person. I have to say, I was just so surprised by the feeling that this book was able to pull out of me. I was kind of expecting this to be a quick read, something I read, experienced, put it back on the shelf, and I was kind of done with it. I really did not expect to experience any strong emotions while reading this. I mean, other than anger, because Doug sucks, who is her owner. I just had such a tender little spot for Annie throughout this. Certain parts almost made me want to cry, just her realizations, the feelings that she was having. You know, of course, Annie and Doug's relationship also resembles that of 2 humans, a toxic relationship between 2 humans. Like, she experiences these kind of real emotions and real sadness by upsetting him and the way he treats her. So it's just like, I wanted to give her a hug, because even though she's a robot, she does experience these very human-like things. I wanted to hug a robot. Now, last but certainly not least, I finally read Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder. I say finally because I have had this book on my shelves for almost a year at this point, and I just never felt the urge to pick it up, but it literally took me 2 pages. And I was obsessed with this. Now, this book is always very generally described as being about a woman who believes she is physically turning into a dog. And that is true, but there's so much more. Our main character is only ever referred to as the mother, and she's really struggling with the fact that she gave up her career to essentially raise her young toddler-aged child on her own. Her husband travels for work, and when he is home, he's useless. He seems to be incompetent on the most basic tasks. She's struggling with her happiness, her motherhood, her womanhood, and through all of that, she finds she is starting to develop some of the physical characteristics resembling that of a dog. What did this for me was Rachel Yoder's writing. It immediately throws you into the mindset of this woman. Like, have I ever been an overtired mother of a young toddler-aged child with an incompetent husband? No. But for 238 pages, I was. Her writing is just so visceral to an experience that I think is shared by a lot of women, and you almost have no choice but to get it. This book is female rage literally on a primal animal level. It's not even just the animalistic qualities of rage, but it is also the primal qualities of motherhood, and how motherhood is in a lot of ways very similar between human women and animals. She likes the idea of being a dog because she can bark and snarl and not have to justify it. She can run free if she wants. She can be a body, an instinct, and urge. She can be hunger and rage, thirst and fear, nothing more. She can revert to a pure, throbbing state. The trailer for the movie adaptation of this was also just released. If you don't know, they are making a movie out of this book with Amy Adams as the mother. I saw somewhere a little blurb that the movie is going to be a comedy for women and a horror movie for men, which sounds exactly like the type of thing I want to watch. The trailer does seem like they're leaning very into the comedy of this book, and there are funny parts to this book, but I would say that that is not the main point of this. There are much more serious, darker tense parts, and I do really hope they stay accurate to that, but either way, I will be there. I will be sad with my smuggled in candy. But those are all of my recent 5-star reads, the books that I have read recently and really loved. If any of these books sounded even remotely intriguing to you, you need to read them. Go give them a try and then come back and tell me what you thought. But I really hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you decide to stick around, and I'll see you in the next one.